Brand new op-ed I mentioned from Comey, the former FBI chief fired by the president, offers a rather flippant attitude toward collusion, suggesting the whole thing suddenly doesn't matter. Quote, I have no idea whether the special counsel will conclude that Mr. Trump knowingly conspired with the Russians or that he obstructed justice with the required corrupt intent. I also don't care. And get this, some in the media are now suggesting we might not be able to trust the Mueller report if it doesn't find collusion.
Let's say Mueller says, look, all these things happened, the president acted in all these ways, but fundamentally there was no actual explicit collusion, or even goes further and says, you know, the president, we exonerate the president. I don't know if you can really do that. Like, do you trust whatever the outcome of this thing is, whatever it says?
Well, former House Oversight Committee Chairman, former prosecutor, and Fox News contributor Trey Gowdy joins me now live. Good to see you, Congressman.
You too, Ed. How are you?
Good to see you. Great. James Comey tries to go on, I want to be fair in this op-ed, by saying he only cares, quote, that the work be done well and completely. And he says he's rooting for the world to see the American justice system works. Do you think he and others were rooting for something else?
I can't speak for Director Comey. I can tell you 60 Democrats voted to move forward with impeachment before Mueller's released a single solitary syllable. Schiff, not only does Schiff have evidence of collusion, he claims, but in his later quotes, he's actually got him indicted. And remember, he said there was a very real prospect he would actually go to jail. And now Swalwell is promising indictments. The part of Comey's op-ed that caught my attention, I agree that the Justice Department has had a really bad 3 years. Where I part from Director Comey is I don't think it's Trump's fault. I think it's some FBI agents and some DOJ officials that have diminished my fellow citizens' confidence in that venerable institution that we need.
You mentioned Eric Swalwell, so let's jump ahead to that. Here's what he said on MSNBC.
If the policy is that you can't indict a sitting president, which I don't agree with, we should rewrite the law that says that if a policy like that prevents you from getting indicted, the statute of limitations can continue to run. But I do believe there are indictments waiting for this president.
Have they learned nothing? Indictments are coming, he says.
Well, we've already had indictments, Eric. We've had a bunch of them, and not a single one was for conspiracy or collusion involving a Trump campaign official. Not a single one. I think what's most disheartening, I think, is not just that a former prosecutor like Swalwell and a former prosecutor like Schiff would flip the burden of proof. Trump is now presumed guilty. That is the sad part to me, is that two former prosecutors are willing to put their entire backgrounds on hold simply because they do not like the president.
So why won't they just follow the facts?
Look, that's my motto. May justice be done though the heavens fall. And that's what I hope most of my fellow citizens are going to say. You know what? Let's wait until Mueller issues his report. Comey used a word in his op-ed that I do take exception to. Mueller doesn't conclude crimes. Mueller alleges, prosecutors allege. It is juries in this country that conclude whether or not a crime was committed, not special counsel. They don't speak through press conferences and they don't speak through reports. They speak through indictments and convictions. And there is a presumption of innocence in this country, whether Democrats like Schiff and Swalwell like it or not.
And there were, when you said a moment ago, there haven't been any indictments associated with collusion. There's certainly been indictments and guilty pleas in the Mueller investigation, as you know, tied to communications with Russians. But it hasn't led to collusion, even though these Democrats keep saying it's been proven and that there's evidence.
Well, Adam Schiff had evidence of collusion in March of 2017. So if you go back in time, Ed, Comey is before the House Intelligence Committee and publicly confirms for the very first time there's a counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign. That's on March the 20th, 2017. 2 days later is when Adam Schiff said he had evidence not quite direct, but a little more than circumstantial. It took him 2 days to find what the FBI and Mueller haven't found in 2 years. There's not a single indictment of a Trump campaign official for conspiracy to hack Podesta's email or hack the DNC server. Not a single one.
So is this why we're now starting to see some spin, whether it's from Democrats or people in the media? They're saying, after 2 years of wait for Mueller, we maybe can't trust Mueller.
I tell you, For those of us that have been defending Mueller, and trust me, there were days it was lonely as a Republican to do that. I'm very interested in his report because I think it's going to be about what Russia did. I think that's what really disappoints some Democrats, not all, but some Democrats, is finding out what Russia did to this country in 2016 is not enough. What they really, really want is the President of the United States indicted. But they pivoted from collusion months ago. Remember this whole obstruction of justice? Well, maybe he didn't collude, but the firing of Jim Comey is tantamount to obstruction of justice. They pivoted months ago, and now they're pivoting to Ivanka and Jared and private email and to whatever else they can pivot
So
to.
is this simply, as the president says, a witch hunt? If they just keep moving the ball, they say 2 years ago, we have evidence of collusion. 2 years later, they don't have it. So they just keep moving. It's a shell game.
To me, it is not a witch hunt, Ed, because if you go back and read what Comey said in March of 2017 and what Rod Rosenstein asked Mueller to do, it is find out what Russia did to this country. That is number one. And they did attack this country. That's not a witch hunt. I think what President Trump is frustrated by is this whole collusion narrative, for which there is no evidentiary support, has cast a cloud over his entire presidency, and it's by design. I mean, in March of 2017, when Adam Schiff said he had evidence of collusion, he hadn't even given his witness list to Devin Nunes. That's how unserious he was about investigating collusion. This has been calculated to draw out for the entire Trump first term, and they've been pretty successful.
So last question, has it been almost a battle of semantics? Because what it seems to me you're saying, going back to Comey in March of 2017 with the counterintelligence investigation, there was interference from the Russians, but Democrats have tried again and again to say there was collusion and somehow that flipped the election. Nobody's denying there was interference, but did they try to make a leap from interference to collusion and flipping the election?
Well, they made more than a leap. They made a calculated decision that what would be a unifying thing for this country, how to prevent a hostile foreign country from interfering with our election. That should be an American issue, Ed, not a Republican or Democrat, American. But that's not interesting enough to some of my, not all, some of my Democrat former colleagues. It had to be about collusion because they still can't believe that Trump won in 2016. None of their friends voted for him. So how in the world did he win? And I think it's about undoing an election every bit as much as it is finding out what Russia tried to do to us.
Trey Gowdy, we appreciate you coming in tonight and waiting for the facts.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.